to love the God, and to fear the flame, and to burn the crowd that has a name, and to right or wrong, and to meek or strong. It is known to scream from the wall. I will, I won't, I've read, I've taught, I know, I've been every boy. Now it won't be raised, hey, now it won't be scarred like that, hey, now it won't be raised.
Okay, here we go, getting started into the third video on the Anunnaki's Return 2022 and what my thoughts on. First of all, let me explain something so that people understand that I am not reading the book word from word. I'm reading like little paragraphs here and there, things that make sense to me, that I think that would make sense to you, hopefully, that I'm just relaying to you. And not so much as just in my interpretation, but some of the things that point out to me that, like, okay, this is bullshit, or this makes sense, or this doesn't make sense. It's just my, what I'm gathering from this book. Now, we're already past September. We're in October. This is the 10th edition, which makes sense because we're in the 10th month of 2022. So 10th edition, 10th month. I believe that this is the final edition that Maximilien de Lafayette wrote, as far as the first, second, fourth, fifth edition, sixth, all the way up, and I think the 10th is the last one. I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong about that. That's the only one I can find. It's the 10th one. Also, I want to point out that in September I missed something when I was talking about events in the last video. There was another event that happened in September, and that was on the 8th of September. The Queen of Elizabeth, the Queen of England, whatever, I don't really care, she died. So that could be kind of a Pacific thing, that something was happening, something is happening, outside of the human understanding, because, none of those people are human. I don't care who you vote for, who you think your buddy, or who, you think has your values and stuff like that. Anybody that holds the highest position in office, I don't care how familiar you feel like you are with that person, they are not the same as you and the rest of the humans. It's not even possible. So so the fact that she passed away was also a very significant event, and it was kind of bullshit because it overshadowed 9/11, right? Because it happened a few days before the 9/11 thing, and when we were going through all that stuff with the all the stuff with the 9/11 reunion, they talked more about the Queen of England dying than they did about the great tragic event that happened in America. Why was she so important to America? But anyhow, that's not what this video is about. But it was an event that happened in September. So let's get on through this. You remember I said I'm not going to rip out this page, and let's move on. So the Ulema are well versed in many languages, and they are fond of languages of ancient civilizations, including those of vanished cultures. Ulema learn foreign languages very easily and rapidly. Usually, an Ulema learns a foreign language in less than a week. So the Ulema obviously are they're not the Anunnaki, because I didn't explain that before. If you don't know anything about, the Ulema or anything like that, but you've heard about the Anunnaki, so you're curious, if you really want to learn more about that, you have to go over to 1010's channel, because she goes through the actual 4th edition and 5th edition all the way through, and there's this whole thing with the Ulema, which they're in complete it just doesn't, a lot of it doesn't make sense, right? When the stuff that they say about the Ulema and how that they don't take part, if you watched the previous video, how I was talking about how they don't take part in a lot of the things that have to do with government and organizations and stuff like that. However, they seem to be okay with the Freemasons. And for one thing I've heard, and I could be wrong, you can look this up on yourself, but I've heard that the Freemasons actually do animal sacrifice. I could be wrong about that. It's just what I heard, okay, that they sacrifice goats. I heard that, but I could be completely wrong. And if that is true, let's say that is true, then it's absolutely impossible for them to be working with the Ulema or with the Anunnaki. So something is completely wrong with this text, right? It's in complete conflict with itself. When they talk about how the Ulema are tight with the Anunnaki, or the Ulema are tight with the Anunnaki, and they also are open to the Masons being part of their group and being around stuff. It just doesn't make sense, because quite a few Masons that I know are police officers. I mean, and they talk about they're not part of the authoritarianism and all that stuff. So it doesn't make sense unless somebody who's writing this doesn't know anything about the Masons. It doesn't, they may possibly. But the thing is also too the fact that it made it seem kind of like Maximilian de Lafayette is a Mason, but it doesn't. This stuff doesn't add up. You see what I'm saying? It also says in here too that the Anunnaki believe that the message, everything that they give, any message that they give, should be clear and understandable. Well, there's so much conflict, self-conflict with the writings in here that it's not straight and straightforward, right? So let's see here. I said my love for languages. I talked about that in January 2021. Yeah, so I talked about my love of languages. Now, I'm not saying that I am Unalema. I'm not saying that I am an Anunnaki, right? I'm saying that from the stuff from this book, if it's true, then I would have connections with the Anunnaki, be it friend or foe to them, right? Being, a being that's just neutral to their cause and just here to warn the humans and say, hey, look, this is what's going on, and for you to move forward, you need to be neutral. Nobody else is preaching that message. I am the only freaking person other than John Lennon. The song Imagine. It's all about being ultra neutral. Other than that, nobody else is talking about it. Everybody has their groups that they fit into or they want to fit into, and they want to force you into a group. I'm not trying to force you into any groups. I'm talking about being separated from all of that stuff. And that's exactly what it said in the last reading of the Ulema. And if you watch this reason we don't have the pages here, because we watched the previous video, you know that I tear the pages out when I'm done reading them. That's what I was talking about right there. They are socially active. However, they do not reveal themselves to the rest of us, nor get involved in group activities. They dislike organized religions. And so does the Anunnaki. But yet, however, it says in this book, when by the year 2027, after they've already vetted out all the people, let's make this clear, that this year, according to this text in this books, that the Anunnaki come back this year and they wipe out everyone that they don't deem pure, right? And those that are pure, first of all, you have to be vegan. Don't forget, you have to be vegan. And you can't say, oh, now that they're here, I'm going to go ahead and be vegan. No, it has to be before that. You have to be vegan before that. And there's a lot of other stuff, that will condemn you to the black goo death, because that's what they bring. They bring the black goo death. So let's not forget that 2027 is well after all the people that they deemed unworthy. So those are the people that they deem worthy, yet they're saying that there's still going to be these mass religious organizations on the planet, and that doesn't make any sense, because we know that the Muslim faith, they do animal sacrifice. We know that the Jews do animal sacrifice. And if you don't watch what they do with chickens, go just type it in and look at what they do with chickens. And we know that Christians look at animals as if they were, what does it say? I think it's in Genesis that the animals are, I forgot the verse, when that God of that Bible says it's okay to sacrifice an animal, and it absolutely 100% cannot be of Anunnaki origins. It's in total and 100% conflict with this book. So when people are saying that the Anunnaki of this book, and they can't wait till they come back, and they're trying to attach the Anunnaki with these books and stuff to any one of the three religions, I'm sorry. You obviously have your own skewed reality on what you're filtering in, right? You're not just taking it for what it says. It's like literally there's a green light, there's a yellow light, and then there's a red light. The green light means you can go. The red light means you better stay and don't move. And then there's this yellow light that's in between, and some assholes will try to hurry up and speed through that and completely blow a red light instead of slowing down and getting ready to stop. And that's what these people are doing. They're blowing the red light because they're still in green mode. They're still in go mode, and they think yellow means to hurry up and just get past red. So just hurry up and get past what the text is actually saying, so that way you can just see green, the whole way home or the whole way through your destination. And that's a problem especially with a lot of Americans. I don't know about other countries, but in America, Americans want to build their own reality. And that's a huge problem because I don't know how many people in America, and that's a lot of people building their own reality. It just doesn't, it's awful. So anyhow, it doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. It's in total contrast of what the human species is supposed to be. This whole thing when they telling you build your own reality, let me get back to the book. The whole thing with them telling you make reality what you want it to be, that's exactly what people say when they're in front of a psychiatrist. Well, it's my reality, and the psychiatrist starts writing you prescriptions and say, okay, well, we're going to help you out and give you some pills, and we got some people for you to talk to because you have your own reality, right? Which conflicts with the natural reality that the entire world has to deal with. It's like people who are in total denial that somebody died or whatever. You've seen it happen. So anyhow, let's move on. The origin, the original intentions of the Anunnaki was to create species of humans capable of carrying out physical tasks without questioning their origin, the nature of their creators, and the reason for being created. Human pets. That's what I wrote there. Human pets. Let me explain this to you one more time. Let's break this down and what it says, why the Anunnaki even created the humans. Okay, it says for humans capable of carrying out physical tasks without questioning their origins. Carrying out physical tasks. Now, this doesn't mean that it's physical tasks for the Anunnaki that they're going to be slaves, right? That they've created you as slaves to carry out tasks. Obviously, from what it says, the Igigi or the Anunnaki created, or God created Eve so he can have sex with him. That's the first sex doll, in my opinion, if that's what it's saying there. But just carrying out physical tasks without questioning their origins, they automatically want you to be dumb. And anything that would create you to be dumb is not a loving creator or creators. Okay? Let me make it simple for most of you. If you have a child, I don't know if you do, but let's say you do have a child. For those of you who are parents, you can understand this. You expect or hope that your children will one day grow up and become adults and become smarter than you, right? You one day hope that your children will not be ignorant, will be intelligent, and will understand the world and navigate through it. Look at that more in that perspective. If you're a parent, and that's the way you all should look at it. If you're a parent, every one of you should look at it more in this perspective, if I can make it more simple for you to understand. If you're a parent, think of the Anunnakis like your parent, right? And think of, would you do this to your children? Is that how you'd want your children? Would you want your children just to be able to carry out physical tasks without questioning their origins? In other words, them asking, I know you're my father, you're my mother, but who is your father and who is your mother? And so forth and so forth, and it's like this is all wrong. This is not good. This is not a good thing. The nature of their creators, well, that's what I was just saying there, and the reasons for being created. This is not something to celebrate. These are not beings to celebrate. I'm going to break that down one more time. The original intentions of the Anunnaki was to create a species of human capable of carrying out physical tasks without questioning their origins, their nature of their creators, and the reason for being created. That's awful. And it's garbage. And that right there, if it's true, is why you don't have your telepathy, your natural telepathy unlocked, let alone your advanced telepathy. All right, so did the Anunnaki come to Earth to mine gold? No, they did not. So I'm not going to read that whole thing to you about them coming from Nibiru and the fact that they can transmute things and stuff like that. So there's a lot of stuff that humans now are able to make, right? Like these nanobots and all this stuff they're talking about before they go to Mars. They already got robots on Mars, right? Supposedly. We know that those robots do exist here on Earth, so we don't know if they have them on Mars or not. That's what they tell us. But the plan is to send robots there, nanorobots, stuff like that, for them to create their own robot civilization and to build stuff before the humans get there, right? That's so basic for a species. That's like the very first, that's baby steps. You may be thinking as a human like that's a massive achievement. It is for some, for extremely under-evolved species like human beings, extremely under-evolved, and it's because there's been a lot taken from you, right? So yes, it's a big step for under-evolved species. You're not evolved. You haven't evolved in thousands of years. You've been stuck. You haven't evolved. So what I'm trying to get to here is that, to think that the Anunnaki or any species would need humans to be slaves to do tasks for them just doesn't make any sense. When humans already have robots that are their slaves and that do things for them, right? And although the Anunnaki pre-made humans, and it talks about how they made them kind of like robots, to have what I read earlier, to have to be able to carry out tasks without asking where they come from, who created them or anything like that, and to just do physical tasks. And the fact that they're supposed to be emotionless and like robots, it doesn't make sense when you could just bring nanobots to do that stuff, right? Like if the humans can make it, which are completely and extremely underdeveloped, then something that is extremely advanced, and as far as what I understand in the 5th edition, that even says that the Anunnaki created Earth, right? Like they created this part of the galaxy. Like that was like a whole thing that they did, that they created this part of the galaxy. So if they can do that, they don't need humans to slave for them. Humans need humans to be slaves. Until now, where they're now having the robots, is now humans are afraid that they're going to get replaced by robots, right? And so that's the point. And hopefully you understand that. It's not really that hard to understand. I think it's really basic. I don't know why anybody buys into the shit that any species needs you as food, as slaves, or anything at all. They simply do not need you. An extremely advanced species with advanced not just telepathy, but telekinesis, I've already explained, can get their food from the very soil that they stand on. They don't have to digest anything. Kind of like the Greys, right? Like if you look at the Greys had this little tiny slit for a mouth, right? Supposedly. So obviously they don't need to eat. They don't physically need to eat anything. And there's nothing that anybody's ever talked about that says that they've been abducted or has spending time around the graves ever talked about, that I've ever heard, in all the stories I've heard, that talked about anything that they ever seen them eating. If you have advanced telekinesis, which we know that they have advanced telekinesis from what we hear about the Greys, and they have advanced telepathy. Advanced telekinesis, you do not need to physically eat. You can simply bring stuff up, nourishment from the soil of the earth. Bring nourishment through the water in the earth. Just going in the water can simply pull all their minerals and everything that they need from the water into their body, through their skin, without actually physically having to eat. So people are talking about, oh, these aliens and they want to eat humans and stuff like that. The problem is that humans eat everything. And I guarantee you that when the veil lifts, or let's say that an alien species was to be known and to pop up right now, and everybody would know about them, and they'd be open with the world, and everybody would know, there would be people who would want to eat that alien. That's the problem. Because humans would eat them. You don't believe me? Go over to China. They eat every freaking thing anyhow. You don't think that they wouldn't eat a gray? Oh, you better bet your ass. Not only would they eat a gray, but they would try to find some type of medical properties that they can get from the gray skin, their blood, the bones, and so would Americans and everybody else. So the problem is it's self-reflecting. That the humans think that these advanced species want to do to them what the humans have done to everything else on this planet. You have done it to everything else on this planet. The council suspected that the introduction of the new life forms, even in the isolated conditions of a laboratory, might be a threat to everyone already on Ashtara, which I don't know where the hell that is. Large and small animals, and particularly people that were to be created in the image of the Anunnaki, could not be tolerated to wander around freely on Ashtara. So what this was saying was that when they were talking about, this group of Anunnaki were talking about making the human species, they went in front of the council, this big council of Anunnaki, and they said, okay, you can do this experiment with these humans, but you can't do them here on this planet. You need to do them somewhere else. So then they went and created they created this galaxy and these planets and stuff. Actually, I think it was in here, in this book. And then after that, they were told they could create them on this planet. That's why it says, that's why I got here. The scientists devoted more thought to their project and agreed that what they really needed was a planet-sized laboratory. So instead of just making them in a lab on Ashtaria, Tari, Ashtaria, that they need to make an entire planet. So they actually, in this book, claim that they created Earth, which is conflict with what they said earlier about the Igigi, which I don't know if the Igigi are Anunnaki. That is so confusing. That they originally were the ones who created the humans, and they were like three-legged and stuff like that. But then it says, no, the Anunnaki came and they manipulated and changed the humans to make them better and gave them brains. So the whole thing is just, it's way off base, right? A lot of it's in conflict with itself. But what I want you to take note here was that they needed a planet-sized laboratory, which would be Earth, where the creations could interact in a controlled environment. Let me repeat that one more time to you. Where the creations, that's you, human, could interact in a controlled environment. This is a zoo planet. And there are a lot of people who talk about that in the UFO alien community, that Earth is a zoo planet. And this right here is what that's saying as well, right? Is that they wanted you in a controlled environment, which would explain that if they went to the moon, that they were told to stop going to the moon, to stay on Earth. You're not allowed to leave Earth. and the fact that they'll never ever go to Mars until the Anunnaki come here and say, okay, we're going to let you go to Mars. Which also doesn't make sense, because if the Anunnaki come here and they talk about in this book that the humans will be able to go to Mars by 2030 or 2029, it doesn't make sense, because if the Anunnaki are openly on this planet after they wiped out, now 2029 is well after 2022. It's after the complete wipe, the whole reset, and having there we go, the Great Reset, and having the humans that they deem worthy to survive, right? Well, if they're here openly with the humans, the humans, why wouldn't they give the humans technology? Because they said something about, I think they say they do give the human technology. Why wouldn't the humans have already gone to be able to get to Mars like in 2023? Why would it take so long? It doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense for, like, I don't think that it was really well thought through when this was written. And I'm not bashing the book. This very well could all be true. It may very well may be that I have a misunderstanding of what the Anunnaki, how they're going to do this after 2022. That could be possible. But a lot of things don't add up. Like I said, the religion thing does not add up. If you're religious, then whatever your religion is, if it's one of the part of the main three, then what it says with the Anunnaki, it's the opposite of what they deem for worthiness to make it past 2022. I don't know. It's just really, really bad. Planet Zoo for the zookeepers. And that's what I wrote here. So yeah, this is the Planet Zoo. This is a zoo planet, and they're your zookeepers. That's not a good thing. That's not a good thing at all. Moving on. Create the planet within the Milky Way for easy traveling, but it had to be at some distance from Astaria just in case. So there you go. Yeah, it says, this is where it says that they actually created Earth. They talk about how they created Earth in the Milky Way, but it has to be far enough away from Astaria. Now, why would they be worried about it being as far? This is another thing that's conflicting here. Why would they be worried about a planet being far enough away from their planet, this planet Astaria, where this council is at, obviously? Why would they be worried if they're not going to let the humans off the planet anyhow, and it's a controlled environment, right? It could be right next door. That this planet literally could be, Earth could be right next door to that planet, and they would have no fear because they don't have to worry about it because it's in a controlled environment. So why would it have to be that far away? That doesn't make sense. Doesn't add up. And then my little note here is they created Earth as a type of a ghetto. So Earth would be considered like the ghetto, right? Compared to this paradise, which they're from, which is Astaria, because that's why they want you as far away from possible as from them. It's like having your elites saying, no, we don't want you in our neighborhood, let alone we don't want you in our zip code, right? We want you as far away from us as possible. We want you, we're going to live on an island, and we'll let you guys stay in this, this continent where it's a complete shithole. There are islands out there that are owned by these elites and these wealthy people that it's like total paradise. And you'll never, ever, ever get to see that place. And think of it in that respects. Moving on. All right, let me try to get through this quicker. Let's see here. The humans that resulted were no longer suitable for the study. That was the reason why the Anunnaki devastated their research on Earth. Deserted their research on Earth. So the humans that resulted were no longer suitable for the study. So you humans, they're saying that you're no longer, they don't need to study you anymore, right? So at some point they're like, okay, we're done with those humans, and they just left. And then it says that was the reason why the Anunnaki deserted their research on Earth. That's shit. It's completely shit. I don't really think I need to explain it anymore. Used and dumped, then they will return to judge and wipe. Yeah, so that's what I wrote down. So they created the humans, as you already heard. They created the Earth, created humans, made sure the Earth was far enough away from this council's Earth, which is Astari or whatever. And they studied the humans for as long as they needed to study you. And then they said, okay, we're out. We're done. See ya. And they just left. And they left a mess behind, because Earth is a beautiful place, but the humans are a complete mess. And they've destroyed a lot of stuff on Earth. And those of you who don't want to believe that or whatever, I'm sorry. Look, there's beautiful forest and jungles and stuff like that were just completely wiped out. Just beautiful plots of land that are completely wiped out, and now they're pavement. And I look and I can sometimes see or imagine what a part of a city would look like if it was in its natural environment without the concrete there, right? Without the steel and concrete and all these things, these obstructions that were brought from the earth, manipulated and misplaced and tampered with and put in another part of earth. And that's the reason why we have deer and animals that still cross the roads. And it's just like, why would they do that when the vehicles that are going by are very dangerous, and that they could see they're dangerous, but they still do it? It's because it's inherently in their DNA from their thousands of years of reproducing and living on that spot of land and migrating, going back and forth on that spot of land. It doesn't matter what the humans do when they create these massive highways and these roads and stuff like that. The animals still have it in them that they need to go from this side of the road to that side of the road, regardless. It's like it's almost like an inherent programming inside of them that they need to go to this other spot, even though that they know that they may not make it, and they still do it, and they die, horrifically. The animal slaughter on the roads is a blight from the human beings on the planet. Period. Just so you can get to your boyfriend's house, your girlfriend's house, to work, to school, or to get a burger from McDonald's, and you run over an animal. It's absurd. I've never hit an animal. In the 30 years that I've been driving, never hit an animal. Always been extremely careful. I even try not to hit the little creepy crawly things that are crawling across the road. If I see a creepy crawly thing, I'm not going to get in a car accident for it, but I'll try to extremely avoid running that thing over, because it's life, and it's just doing what it knows. And the animals aren't in the way. You're in the way. That's the problem. The animals aren't in the way. They're doing what they know. Okay, so let's get back to this. The humans that resulted were no. Okay, so when they were done with you, they just deserted you. And so that would also make a lot of sense for why the humans are so awful to animals. Because if this is true, then the humans treated you like animals, and so you treat the animals in the way that you treat them, right? If you still eat meat and still do all these horrific things, and you just don't care, and you run squirrels over or whatever, then it makes sense. Because that's an Anunnaki, how the Anunnaki had abandoned the humans and just didn't care enough to and have any love for the humans. They don't love you. Make no mistake about it. They do not love you. It's right there. I've just read it to you to explain it to you. I'm just going to move on. let's see here. The expectation is that they would formally announce it in around 20. The expectation is that they would formally announce it around 2022. Formally announce what? Their return. I'm sorry. So their return would be formally announced in around this year, 2022. And so far, there's nothing that we've been able to see that is a clear message saying, the Anunnaki are here and are returning, other than this book, and that's it. So all of this I just wrote boring, as you can see right up here. I just wrote that's all boring. It's a bunch of crap. It's stuff that you don't, get by the book if you want to read all this stuff. I've read the whole thing. Obviously, I wouldn't have all these notes if I didn't read the whole thing. So, just buy the book if you want to read all that stuff. And I wrote here, boring topic about all seeing eye, Hebrew through this, Muslim that. Oh yeah, Hebrew this, Muslim that. Okay. So this whole thing here, this whole section is about, if you want to know about more about what they believe with the all-seeing eye, I don't really care. I'm sorry, I just don't care about it all that much. But they talk about that topic in here about the all-seeing eye. It has to do with Hebrews and has to do with Muslims. So I found it very boring. And here is when we start these rituals. So in this book, not only do they talk a lot about religion, but there's a lot of rituals in this book. And I'm not into rituals. Sorry, I'm really not into that stuff. So if you want to learn, like in the 4th edition and 5th edition from Maximilian de Lafayette with the Anunnaki Return in 2022, it's pretty much set out the foundations, share some stories from some Anunnaki who are here and stuff like that, but it doesn't really give you rituals. There's a lot of rituals in this book. If you want this good thing to happen for you or that good thing to happen for you, you want to heal headaches or blah blah blah, or heal this or whatever, this book says you do these rituals, and it tells you how to do the rituals. And so here, it's all boring to me, but origins, divide. Okay, so it has this origins thing. So each one of these things with these rituals have, it tells you the origins. It says what is Sam Ika or whatever the hell that is, and it says what is. So it tells you the name, and then it explains the origins, and then the numerical value. Like in this one, it says. And see, so this origins, it talks about Arabic and Hebrew and Anunnaki languages, and then it says in number 2, the numerical value is 7. So they go through like this. He goes through like this whole thing with the numbers, and it says the meaning, weapon. So like for this one, it's weapon. For this one over here, it's pillar. The numerical value is 15. Number 4. Code use according to mythology and extreme. I don't know what the hell that is. I don't even care. To be written several times on a small stone and placed inside of the house. So that's what I'm saying. Like he tells you how to do these rituals. If you're interested in that, buy the book for that. Then you can do these little rituals if that's something that you're into. I'm personally not into that stuff. But for some of you, that might be interesting. Maybe you didn't even know that there was a whole thing with all these rituals. So you'll find that in this book, which is the 10th edition. If you want to learn the Anunnaki rituals according to Maximilian de Lafayette, then you'll find it in this book. For me, I find it boring and nothing that I will ever do. Maybe it's for you. There's people who are into that stuff. Let's see here. It was the first name given to the first genetically created human by the Anunnaki. So they're talking about Abe, ABD. I guess that's supposed to be Abe. I have no idea. And here it's the meaning, the numerical value is 13. This is also part of ritual, and they're explaining here the meaning was it was the first name given to the genetically created human by an Anunnaki. The original meaning is slave. Slave. How jacked up is that? Later on, Inky changed it to servant. The original, so the first name that the Anunnaki gave to the first human they created was Abe. And it says the original meaning to Abe is slave. Slave, that's you. And that's what I wrote here, human. Slave, that's you, human. So, like I said, that doesn't make sense at any. Obviously, this is not well thought out. An advanced being that can create planets and all this shit and create human life and stuff like that, they don't need organisms to be slaves. They just don't. Humans are not good slaves. They're not good slaves. They're only good for other humans. To be like, human slaves are good for other humans to be slaves to. And that's an awful thing to say, but that's what it is. That's why they have a thing called slave wage, right? Like, humans make good slaves for other humans, which is an awful thing. It's absolutely an awful thing. But they would not make good slaves for an advanced species like the Anunnaki. At all. It doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. If you're an underdeveloped brain, underdeveloped mind, and you cannot think because you're not smart enough to understand the technology and where it's at right now today, because you're not up on it, and you're one of those people that let technology pass you by, or you're the type of person that just tries to play catch up when you're 15, 20 years behind, that's your problem. But there are a lot of people out there who don't, and they understand the technology where it's at. And if you bring this shit to them and you tell them that an advanced species needs humans to be slaves, they're going to laugh at you. Because they're going to say, well, obviously those beings are not that advanced. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. Unless an underdeveloped mind of a human created and fabricated this story. Then it makes sense. And that's how you get all the whole religion thing in there too. So yeah, that means you're a slave human, because it says the first name of the first human was slave. Abe meant slave. Also, here we go. Also, it says means servant, or later that Enki, E-N-K-I, changed it to, instead of slave, to servant, because all of a sudden now the Anunnaki are politically correct. They want it to be politically correct. We don't want to call you a slave. We want to call you a servant. This shit. And it also says it also means a black person, and then down there it says slave. So if it means a black person, right? The first human that was created by the Anunnaki was named Abe, which means slave. They later changed it to servant. But that word also meant a black person, which would mean the first human would be black, which also doesn't make any damn sense. There's so many different humans on Earth that it just doesn't seem to make sense that one or two humans were the only ones that created all the rest of the humans on the planet. When the humans were brought to this planet, or when they came here and genetically tampered with the pre-hominid species, They did it with a bunch of different ones and to get different results. Whether it was the Anunnaki or whoever did it, it wasn't that they just took an Eve and an Adam and that's it, and that's where everybody came from. It does not make sense. There's different types of monkeys. There's your orangutans, there's your gorillas, there's your monkeys, there's your chimpanzees. There's different types of humans. There's black humans. Well, I mean, I'm not going to get too politically correct on this. We're just going to go with color scheme because that's what you guys like. There's a black humans, there's yellow humans, there's red humans, there's white humans. There's the brown humans. There's different types, just like there's different types of dogs, just like there's different types of cats. They don't all come from just the same one. And maybe you could make the argument and say all dogs come from wolves. They all come from the same wolf. Is that true, though? Later on, you may find out that that's completely wrong. That there were just different types of dogs from the very get-go. And as time went on, yes, there was different breeds that changed the dogs to get smaller little, teacup poodles, which is stupid as hell. So yeah, they're saying here, obviously that would mean the first human would be a black human. And don't forget, I'm biracial. So I'm completely ultra neutral when it comes to black, white, all that. So, your religion, all that stuff. So, yeah. Now for a black person, that may tickle the nipples and make them excited. Oh yeah, the first person was black. Who cares? Anyhow. And I don't believe that there was any one first human. There were first humans. And I don't know why that's hard to accept. Why is that hard to even accept? Why can't the humans just accept the fact that a bunch of different humans were created at the same freaking time? Why has it got to be your race? That's a problem. That's what I'm talking about with being neutral. It's the only way you can move forward. Your species is doomed without becoming neutral. It's not worthy until you become neutral. Let me move on. Anunnaki do not believe in religions as we do on Earth. There you go. I mean, it's right there. The Anunnaki do not believe in religions as we do on Earth. Answer to religion. That's what I wrote down right there. Your answer to religion. But yet, after they wipe out everybody in 2022, by 2027, they talk about how the Muslim faith becomes the most dominant religion on Earth. That shit does not make any sense. It doesn't add up. There's a problem here. The Anunnaki do not believe in reincarnation, a spiritual life after death. Ta-da! The Anunnaki do not believe in reincarnation. Well, first of all, I know that that's bullshit. And the second one, I'm not saying it's bullshit that the Anunnaki believe it or not. The second one, a spiritual life after death. There you go. For those of you who are religious, read this. Let me read this one more time for you. For those of you who are religious and you believe that the Anunnaki in these readings from these books with Maximilian de Lafayette are your angels or your demons. It don't really matter what the hell you want, whichever side you want to pick them on. Because obviously, if they were demons from the Bible, then they would know that there's a life after death. So for the say that they don't believe that is absolutely stupid and doesn't make any sense if they were your demons of the Bible or if they're your angels of the Bible. They obviously, it says right here, they do not believe in religions as we do here on Earth. And it says right here, the Anunnaki do not believe in reincarnations or a spiritual life after death. The answer to reincarnation and souls. There's your answer. You don't have a soul according to the Anunnaki in this book. You're nothing. You're just meat puppets for their experiment. If you didn't know this, I've said this before, way back in 2020. I am perfectly fine with oblivion. I said that in 2020 on video a few times. I'm okay with oblivion. I don't care. I literally don't care. After this life, which I know now things differently, but after this life on this planet, I don't think humans, for those who don't understand what oblivion, like it's just, it doesn't matter, right? It's that point in between of consciousness and unconsciousness and into your dream world that I was talking about in the previous video. So, and the point I was going to make is I would rather have oblivion. This is me saying this right now, which I'm not human like you guys are anyhow. But if I was, I would be 100% okay with oblivion than living in the Anunnaki's selection of those who they deem as worthy. I would be 100% okay with that. Because the alternative of making it past 2022 and their extinction, and knowing that as a human, if I was a human, I'm speaking if I was a human, and knowing that, and then later on, and then getting to be around an Anunnaki, getting to have, some small telepathy and stuff like that. How could you live with yourself? How could you absolutely live with yourself? Unless you're some self-righteous psychopath. They created you as nothing. Nothing. And all those people that would have died and wiped out because they ate burgers. I have a better solution and alternative for the humans than the Anunnaki do. A far better one. Advanced telepathy. And then eventually, after you guys sort all your shit out, give you advanced telekinesis so you can get more done. I'm running out of time here already. Damn, I've only made it to 52, which is when Harry Truman became president. A level 1 is a sphere of existence, where the Anunnaki ceases to evolve and the conduit is no longer fully operational. The departed Anunnaki, some live 400,000 years. Okay, so I talked about that before about, so this is talking about different levels of Anunnaki and stuff like that. And so this explains how the Anunnaki, they get to continue to live on for 400,000 years and separate themselves to go to different universes and things like that, and make these conduits and all this stuff and things like that. And the reason why this is important is because they just went through this whole thing, explained to you that you're absolutely garbage throwaways of experiments on a planet that they wanted completely far away from where their home planet is. And now they talk about how great they are and all this stuff that they have and all this stuff that they... this would be like, if you are not an elite and you're listening to this right now, consider them the elites and consider yourself a common peasant, useless mouth eater. And that's another thing too. Why do they call, have you ever heard that term, useless mouth eaters? There's been a term about those elites saying that, the rest of you are just useless mouth eaters. Why would they say that if they don't know about advanced telekinesis? And as far as I know, I'm the only person that you have probably ever heard talk about this advanced telekinesis and the things that I break down with it. There's nobody else sharing that with you. So, let's see here. This happens when he or she his or her deeds were not viewed by the Anunnaki Council as of the first order. So this also explains that when Anunnaki die, that they're also being judged by their own kind. That they judge one another. The whole thing would make sense of why humans are so awful to your own kind if this were true. It would make sense. And if that's the case, then that's nothing to celebrate. It's all bad. All bad. This personality will have access to a new physical body and a greater conduit. So if they do the right things, if the Anunnaki do, if they are doing good, considered in the Anunnaki world, then when the time comes, they will get a new physical body with a greater conduit. This happens when the Anunnaki Council has honored the good deeds of the departed Anunnaki. And then I wrote here, copies are born by the merits of the main. So when a copy is born, right, let's say that you come from an Anunnaki on another planet, another universe, whatever, and you're born on Earth. You're only as good as the merits of your original, I guess you'd say like sire, but it's kind of not really the same. It's almost like being a clone, but growing and being yourself and all this and stuff. And you're only as good as that Anunnaki. So let's say that I am an Anunnaki, right? I am an Anunnaki copy. Then the original Anunnaki that I come from, that is me, this is kind of confusing for some people. It's not really for me. Would have, whatever he did, whatever his merits are, whatever his worth is the way my life would reflect here on Earth in this body. That would mean that Anunnaki would be a complete rebel compared to the other Council Anunnaki. So kind of like, oh yeah, there he is. He made a copy on Earth too to give us a problem and stuff, and we'll make sure that his message is suppressed. And when the time comes in 2017, when he gets unlocked and all that and stuff, then he starts to share the information and things, and he's trying to help the human species and trying to explain to them about being neutral and all this stuff. We'll go ahead and suppress the message. We'll suppress his message. But I've been well taken care of my whole life. I'm not going to lie. I've had some rough goes, but there's always been like someone or something there to bail me out. It's just really, really bizarre when I go back and I look at my life. And I also understand AI differently than most of you do. I don't want to get into all that because we're talking about this book. But yeah, so I don't want to make too much. So the reason why I'm sharing so much about myself and stuff is because me reading this book and sharing this book with you is I'm using a reflection of myself to try to explain it to you in how I see it and try to break down, everything in the most basic way to explain it to you that a lot of this seems like bullshit and some of it seems correct. And when the things I feel are correct is because, because I can see this because of, my experiences and things and stuff like that. And so that's the only reason why you're here. You're not here because, I'm just giving it this to you as word from word. Hopefully you understand that you're listening to this because I'm explaining to you from what I see it, as somebody who's not completely human. And I've shared tons of factual evidence, so whatever. Let's move on here. This personality will have access to the physical... Okay, so, yeah, I just explained that. So copies of the Anunnaki are only good by their merits. So, and it also means that there has to be bad Anunnaki. If you're being judged by your merits, then whether you have good merits or bad merits, then obviously if you either have good merits or what? Better merits? No, there's got to be some bad, right? Who made you? And on page 53, I just wrote more religious topics. I'm not going to go through that. That page is done. I'm about to wrap up here soon. And then here we go back to what is on. So this is more of these ritual things. Oh, do Anunnaki feel and react like us? So this explains that the Anunnaki do have feelings like humans, but it's different than the way humans have feelings. And the way that they explain this, I do 100% relate to the way they explain it. I look at things and my emotions are different than the people that I've interacted with, and I look at things differently. So, but I didn't feel like I needed to read all that stuff to you guys. You can read it yourself. But I did put in here when they go through a list of 3 different beings, there are 3 species. The Lyrans, number 1, because they're talking about what the humans, their emotions, and how they can relate to other extraterrestrial races. And they can relate to the Lyrans, the Nordics, and the Anunnaki. Those top 3. Which is funny because in 2017, when I was unlocked, my mind was unlocked, it was also the same year that Oumuamua came here. It was also the same year that we had that great eclipse that crossed all over America. And it was also the same year that the American government finally came out and said towards the end of the year, hey, yeah, there's there's aliens and these alien craft, and America would only share that information. I don't care what anybody wants to believe or think, is if their hand is forced. Because for, all these years since Harry Truman, who created Project Blue Book, who did all these things to cover everything up, it wasn't pre-Harry Truman. There was stuff about UFOs and things like that talk, but he created committees. He created like these secret programs and stuff to not just cover up the UFO and stuff, but also to make in front of people who, military people and other people who actually want to share their information, and to make this stigma that you're a nutter. And now the government's coming out and finally saying, hey, yeah, this stuff is really happening. And we have all these pilots and stuff like that that's sharing this information. And that was in 2017. And they said 2017, Oumuamua came here from Lyra. And I think I'm going to end here anyhow, guys, because it's this video's gone on quite some time now. And I will be releasing another one here in 72 hours. In case you haven't noticed, I'm releasing these every 72 hours. So, and we'll stop here at 55.
A God, and to fear a flame, into burn.